Alrighty, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our info session today on social work and the mental health worker program. We have today with us Professor Yvette Letelier. I can pronounce it with a French accent. Okay, who is in our sociology department, teaches the course in social services, and is herself a social worker as well. So she's going to be talking about that. And then after, we will have Dr. Jacqueline Ronquillo, who is the co-chair of the psychology department, and also heads the mental health worker program here at Cerritos College, share a little bit about that program, and then we'll open it up to questions from anyone that has any. All right, so go ahead, take it away, Yvette.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. So I'm happy to, I don't know if we decided to wait for questions at the end, or I don't know if you're open to throughout. I know it's a smaller group, so I'm kind of open. I know that if I have to hold on to some questions, sometimes I forget the details to the questions. So if you all have any questions, feel free to ask. I can share my email if you have any other questions later on. A little bit about myself. I am a social worker. I currently facilitate some groups for an agency that works with victims of crime. And I am an adoption social worker for an agency in Long Beach. I also teach at 2 community colleges, and I love, so they call that the gig life. And I kind of really enjoy it because you get a little bit of everything. And that's part of the beauty of our field of social work, is being able to, well, sociology, I think, and social work, because you're able to move around a little bit. I am currently also working towards looking into getting licensed. And I put together a very simple kind of document that shows the educational path if you're looking to do social work. And licensure is kind of the, not like the end all be all, but it's something that really opens up doors. Some people ask, like, well, do you need a PhD? And that's not necessarily, unless you want to, number one, and then want to do research in the field. So licensure is kind of the top thing. And I never really wanted to do clinical, which is therapy. And now, 20 years later, I'm thinking, well, maybe this is the next step in my career. And again, I go back to the fact that that's the beautiful part of social work. Had I done MFT, so marriage and family therapy, that's very clinical work, which means that you want to do therapy for the rest of your life. But with social work, you can go into policy, into politics, you can do clinical, so therapy, you can do foster care, you can work for DCFS. And I think one of the things that people assume is that if you're a social worker, you work for DCFS, or unfortunately that you take children away. And so that's kind of what idea follows this career, but there's so many different options, and it's beautiful because we can be in education, we can be in in a variety of different things. Any questions so far?
Yvette, can you just, for people who may not know what the acronym DCFS stands for?
Sure, the Department of Children and Family Services. And you can be a social worker through them, but that's not the only option that we have. So the Department of Children and Family Services. Thank you for that. Okay, so can I share my screen? Okay, beautiful. So this is a really very, very basic breakdown of educational path. As far as I know, there is no AAT, so there's no AA in social work, as far as I'm familiar with. Do either of you know anything about that? So I tried contacting our career, the counselors, to confirm that information is correct. I looked it up and I didn't find anything. I know that some schools have looked into it. And so what that means is that if you want to do social work, sorry, my dog is going to bark because he sees a bird. Sorry about that. So what that means is that oftentimes we have to choose a different major to go into to then ultimately transfer in to either social work or another degree. So one of the questions that I get often is, do I need to do social work for my bachelor's to be able to get a master's? No, the answer there is no. You can essentially do, I've heard a lot of sociology, psychology, child development, so many different paths. Even some people with business, law, there's a lot of social workers that have their JD, nurses, because it's so versatile that you can really overlap it with so many different things. And the essence of social work is to help, right? And understand systems and human behavior. And essentially, we're working with people in all of those things. So it can be really helpful. So you get your AA in whatever field you feel connected to. What I recommend is that you look into what it takes to transfer out of Cerritos, but also to transfer into whatever school you want to get into, because those things may be very different. I know some colleges don't require a bio class, but Long Beach, which is a really popular campus, requires it to get in. And so what you need to get out may not be what you need to get into the next place that you're going into. So that's kind of a trend that I've seen. So always check in with the school that you want to transfer into to see if you fulfill those requirements. So from there, you go on to the 4-year, and you can choose again either a BA in Soc, Psych, whatever field, or a bachelor's in social work. And the bachelor's in social work is very direct. And some programs actually have an accelerated program, which means that if you have your BSW, I know that Long Beach does this. If you have your BSW, you can do an accelerated master's program, which means that it would only be about a year instead of the 2 years full-time or 3 or 4 part-time. And I'm going kind of quickly with this information just to make sure that we maximize time, but I'm happy to clarify additionally. I like to show this my first day of the Soc 220 class, which is introduced social services, because a lot of us have questions. We don't even realize that there's all of these little details. We just assume like, oh, I want to be a social worker, I just do it. And so I find that this has been really helpful. So some people ask, like, should I go straight into my MSW right out of undergrad, or should I wait? Totally up to you. Another question is, should I do a BA in one of these or a BSW? Again, totally up to you. And the beautiful part is that there's options in the future for a master's in all of those options. And so, okay, wonderful. Fast forward a few years, maybe you've taken some time to be in the field, get familiar with it, see what you do and maybe don't enjoy, which I think things that maybe jobs or populations that we think we won't enjoy, it's also really important to explore that, because maybe you're right, maybe you won't enjoy it, but it's really good to navigate why we like working with certain populations and maybe why we don't. So during your master's, your MSW, if you do the 2-year program, you will be required to do 2 years of internships. The first year, it's usually broken down into 16 hours a week, which for many people, it's like Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday, and school are the other days. Usually in an agency or a population that you don't have a lot of experience with, which is purposeful. They want you to get experience in fields or populations that you're not familiar with. The second year is 20 hours a week, which usually looks like 884. I did medical social work. And so I was able to do overnights in the ER, which I loved. And some agencies are a little more flexible. While you're getting your master's, there's a variety of different concentrations. There's mental health, there's child welfare, children and family, there's gerontology. So if you want to work with older adults, there's medical social work. You can work with dialysis patients in that. You can work at hospitals. I mean, there's so many different, and medical is much more crisis intervention. So you're not going to have a patient for months unless you work with them like they're at a facility. Usually it's however long it is that they're in the hospital, that's how long they're your patient, which is really interesting because they can be your patient for 8 hours. There's military or services with the veterans. And then there's macro. Macro is much more politics, legislation, larger scale. The other option, if you know that you want to do therapy, is the MFT. You can also get licensed here. Marriage and family therapy, again, has a different approach to the ideology. Master's is very system-based, which means you're looking at all of the elements around. And so it really depends on what you're interested in. So beautiful, yay, now you have your master's. What now? Well, you could either immediately you could do nothing and just work, or you can start accruing your licensure. And like I mentioned earlier, licensure is kind of the the best thing to get in our field. And so how do you do that? You have to register with the BBS, which is the Board of Behavioral Sciences, and get your ASW number. And from there, you start accruing hours, and it's about 3,000 hours, and you're doing it on the job. And so it can just be embedded into the job that you're doing. And then at the end of that, once you have your hours, you take a test. And prior to that, you take another law and ethics exam and hopefully get your license. That's kind of the educational path to a LCSW. Yeah, I don't know if maybe I missed something or any questions. No, I know that was very quick and probably very brief, but there's a lot to it. There's little details, questions. Again, there's like, what should I? And I always say, go with what feels right for you, and what you think you may want to. Some students were just sharing like, oh, I don't know what path I want. And I said, honestly, I don't either. And that's the beauty of this field, because you can change paths, but still be in the field every 5 years or every, however long, every 20 years, whatever it is that you'd like. Thank you.
Yvette, could you elaborate a little bit on the macro social work? Like what kind of position would that look like? What kind of organizations would you work for?
So you can start micro and work your way up to macro. So macro could be any agency. It could be administration. It can be, I had a girlfriend who did macro, and she was working with a politician and ensuring that the work that was being provided to the community was aligned with social justice values and ethics. So really the macro could be at an agency, or it can be at the local government or statewide or federally. There's also this one concentration called, kind of always changes, but you can work, it's through HR, and you can regulate that, that companies are approaching diversity, cultural awareness, all of those things, and consulting with them to help them with training and workshops. So there are really so many different things. Micro also limits the individual contact that you have, but you're kind of helping with the structure of the overall system or the programs. There's also one of the other things that comes along with macro would be grant writing. To be able to get the funding to be able to provide those services that the meso and the micro provide to the agency or the community. So it could be writing proposals for additional programs. So it's much more kind of the behind the scenes work to be able to do the frontline work.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Alexis, Tatiana, or Liz, did you all have any questions about social work, or want to share even maybe what you're thinking about and to get some feedback?
I'm just really like learning because like I don't really know like exactly which path I want to take, because I know like I was telling you like I want to do like so many different things. So I'm just like taking everything in right now. But yeah.
Beautiful, thank you. And I think not knowing is beautiful. I feel like there's this pressure to figure it out, but I love the exploration of the not knowing, because at this point, the world is your oyster and we're not so limited.
Right. And like with everything going on right now, I just feel like it's hard to choose like, like what needs more attention. And I often struggle with that too, because like I have so many interests, and it's just like, okay, what would be, what's something I can do that would help the most people? That's what I think.
And one of the things that I recommend when students say that is volunteer. I know right now it's difficult to, but it's still possible. Some places are taking volunteers virtually, or you can sit in certain groups. So one of the best things that you can do is try it out, because then there's no commitment. If you like it, wonderful. Give yourself maybe a 2-month limit or kind of expectation. And then in 2 months, if you don't like it, you can find something else. and it looks really good on your resume. Yeah, on your resumes or your applications.
Mhm.
Because so many schools are so competitive in our area for social work. Dominguez Hills has a social services one, and people aren't very aware of it. And it could very much be like the same in terms of the education that or the information that they're providing. I honestly don't know a lot about that program, but from what I've heard, there's a lot of overlap.
Mhm.
Thank you for sharing that, Liz.
Okay, if there aren't any other questions at the moment, then I think we'll hand it off to Dr. Ronquillo to talk about the mental health worker program.
Thanks, Joy and Yvette, for sharing. That was great. So one thing that if you heard of the mental health worker program, Liz, Alexis, or Tatiana? You heard anything about it, or are you aware of it, that we have it on the campus?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're trying to spread as much awareness about the program, because, and especially to sociology students as well, because the instructors for the program actually have masters in social work. So that's to teach in the program, you have to have an MSW. And they all work in different agencies, such as the Mental Health America. We have one working for the Los Angeles Homeless Security Administration. I think that's LAHSA, I think is the acronym. Foundations for Life. And so the line of work that they do is recovery-based work. And so sometimes I get the question, what's the difference between psychology and social work, for example? And they're very interrelated. It's just that there's different models of training as well, right? So, for example, a clinical psychologist is going to focus mostly on, and my dog is probably barking at a bird as well, is a clinical psychologist will focus on therapy, treatment of disorders, maybe some research. And with, for example, LCSW, which Professor Latavia was talking about, is, you work in the field and you accrue a certain amount of hours to take a licensing exam. And the two jobs could look potentially similar depending on where you work, but what the mental health worker program, what it does is it helps you to get some foundational knowledge. For example, our first class, and I'm going to go ahead and just share my screen and walk you through the brochure. The first class is called Psychosocial Rehabilitation and Recovery. And the training is based on recovery. So the belief that, if you have somebody who is in need of help, that they can recover, right? And so it's very much empathy-based approach. And I don't teach in the program, nor do I have training in it, but I have attended some of those classes with the instructors, and I think it's really phenomenal how they build those empathy skills that you need on the job. So those are some of the things. I'm trying to share my screen, but it's for some reason not showing up. So I'm going to, I do have I can, right, Joy? Oh, there we go. Okay, let's see. Sorry. Oh, there it is. Okay. Alrighty. Let me make this a little bigger. Okay. So we have both a certificate program and a degree program. So this could be a good segue into, the bachelor's in social work, or a BA in sociology, or a BA in psychology. What a lot of our students don't know is that if they are a soc major or a psych major, they can also get the certificate along with that degree, or potentially 2 AAs. Because there's so much overlap between the classes. And what sets this program apart is that the very last class is a field experience class. So, I've written letters of recommendation for students applying to bachelor's of social work or master's of social work programs. And one component they're really looking for is experience. And because it's so competitive, it is important for you to either volunteer your time, and sometimes those volunteer opportunities are not easy to find, right? So the beauty of this program is that we will place you into a site to get those volunteer hours. So that last class is 108 volunteer hours working in a setting where you are going to be doing social work related activities, whether that be for some sites, they allow you to shadow groups, things like that. Others are, more kind of dealing with the paperwork end of things. So it kind of just depends on what you're interested in. But we do have a wide range of clinical internship sites that we are contracted with. So yeah, a lot of times I get the question, how do I get started with this program? There's nothing you have to apply for. As long as you're a Cerritos College student, you can take the classes. And then once you finish the classes, you file for the certificate or the degree. And so this is the sequence that we recommend that you take the classes in, but they do have to go in this order because 151 is a prerequisite for 152, and then all of these courses are a prerequisite for the internship class. What I would recommend as well is that if you're interested in certain populations, for example, if you are interested in working with individuals with substance abuse or drug addiction, we do have a drugs and behavior class. So you can really kind of take these other classes to specialize in a certain area. But I'd really, if you have any questions about the program, I'm happy to answer any if you have any right now, or we can jump on a separate Zoom call, whatever is easier for you. But I'm going to stop here and see if you have any questions about the program or anything of that nature. And so what I'll do is I'll also, okay, so I have a question. Do you know of any programs that have internships for younger adults? I'm in my first year of college. Yeah, Alexis, these sites that we are contracted with, as long as you are 18, you can be a volunteer in that site.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, and it's a little overwhelming. I just had my son who is only in junior high, but he is in a club where they have to do community service. And so he came to me and said, Mom, can you help me find, community service? And it's not very easy right now because of some restrictions of being face-to-face. But if you were, so we have classes starting this summer, and it takes 3 semesters to complete. So by spring 2022, we should have some face-to-face options for internship sites. Don't hold me to that, but that is the trajectory that we think we're on, is that by next spring, you'd be able to get that experience face-to-face at an internship site. So yeah. Any other questions? We have I'm gonna drop a flyer. Oh, duh, that's the flyer for today. Sorry, wrong one. Let's see, sorry. We have another talk in honor of May Mental Health Awareness Month. If you wanted to hear another perspective of somebody who is a psychiatrist by training. So they went to medical school, specialized in psychiatry, but then ended up doing more recovery-based work. And was working with Cal State Long Beach social work department, and also hired as their campus psychiatrist. So he's going to be, and he's worked with a lot of underserved communities and has some books published on some of his work. So he's going to be coming to Cerritos via Zoom to talk to us in May in honor of that month. And then I'm also going to drop the file for our brochure for this program in case you are interested in learning more. And if you wanted to reach out to some of the professors, I can give you their contact info. Again, all of them have masters in social work and work in the field. So if you needed some more contacts, I can help you with that too.
I just have a little suggestion for Alexis's question. I would say, think of what you would want to work with. And then like, let's say you want to work with foster kids to try out. Contact foster agencies in your area, depending on where you live, and go about it that way. And maybe start with much more smaller nonprofits rather than the larger, because trying to get into DCFS might be, or the Department of Children and Family Services might be a little more challenging than Alma Family Services, right? So it really depends on what your passion is or what your curiosity is, and then kind of spearhead it from there, because I think by volunteering, you start to figure out what makes you excited about the field, like, or maybe like, maybe I won't do that one again. But even that is so important, because now you know why maybe you don't want to work in that population, or maybe you think, oh, I don't ever want to work with the older adults. That seems to be like a common response. And then so many people start working with that population, and they're like, I love the older adult population. Like, had I not volunteered or had an internship there, I would have never known. So really just kind of start thinking, well, what do I like, or what would be fun to me, and then go kind of with that, because work should be fun to some extent.
Yeah, and to add a little bit to that, for the classes in the mental health worker program, the first one is very foundational. It's about the models of recovery, and then the other two, one is about special populations. So it goes into some of the populations that you might be working with, in the field. For example, veterans is one of the populations that's covered, homelessness, substance abuse, and so various populations. And then the other class is called helping relationships. And it is focusing on that practitioner model. I hope I'm using the right terminology, because I am not in this field, but and they help you develop the skills that you would be using, on the job. So very, very hands-on. I've seen some of the classes in action, and like, for example, one of the assignments in the intro class, obviously COVID restrictions, they probably have modified this for now, but when we're back face-to-face, these classes are going to be offered face-to-face, and you would go to a social services agency, and apply for a resource or utilize a resource, and bring back that experience to class, and you kind of discuss that in your observations. So very hands-on. And the talk that's happening in May is specifically on skills for these kinds of positions and job skills. So for example, and I think he's done some work on like emotional skills that are needed, different resiliency skills, self-care. So that's the focus of that talk is what skill, it's called, are you ready for a recovery-based career? So, yeah.
And kind of piggybacking off of what you just said, one of the things I like to mention is a lot of times our own experiences is what guides us into this field. And sometimes we've processed those experiences and sometimes we haven't. And so this field really is about, they say it's the most selfless, but in some ways it's kind of a selfish field, because we're exploring the world through our own lens in an effort to help, no, with the goal being helping other people, right? Because of our own experiences, which I think is really beautiful, that we have experienced these things. And so now we're reaching out to others to see how we can be of service to them. And always with the keeping in mind that we're not in this field to save anybody. We can't save anybody. We're there to help them help themselves. Otherwise, we're creating this dependency on us. And so it's beautiful what we could do alongside our clients or our patients or our customers, however we define them, or just others. But the self-care is real because the emotions are real. And some populations, I came into this field wanting to work with domestic violence. And early in my career, it was too much. I couldn't do it. And now 20 years later, I'm like, okay, I think I have it. And so I do facilitate a parenting and a domestic violence group, but 20 years ago, Yvette really didn't know how to navigate that. And so, and then some of us maybe don't have experiences or adversity and in that way, but we just want to give. And that's also allows us to contribute things in that same way. But going to school, like by far, a lot of the people I went to, like the master's level education, we had some challenges during that time because it really encourages us to face the things that we've gone through. Maybe it has something to do with the material, and maybe it's completely different, but it's, how are we gonna be able to be okay with ourselves to be able to help other people work through their own stuff? And I'm not trying to say that we're okay, right? We're all still working on our own stuff. But that can be really challenging and scary for some of us.
Yeah, that's a great point, Yvette. A lot of a lot of our students have had lived experience as well. They, if you don't mind me sharing, I'm going to just navigate over to the website where we have a video of one of our alum from the program who's got a job after the program, and he talks a little bit about his lived experience in this video. So do you mind if I play it? Would that be okay? Okay.
So being the mental health worker program was a great experience. I was able to learn how to really help people, assist people that are suffering from mental illness, from homelessness, to assist them increase in all areas of health and social health, mental health, physical health. Just some great teachers that really believe in recovery. I was led to this field due to my own recovery. I experienced mental illness and substance abuse for a lot of years, since the age of 14 all the way to 28, in and out of the system. People you see on the streets and the bus stop, disheveled and bad hygiene, and you think it's hopeless, right? And I've been able to witness that people can recover. There's so much work out here. In Los Angeles, especially, we need workers, both people with good hearts that really believe, that have hope. We're going to shelter where we provide people with, food, housing, resources. It's the best thing about it, that I get to sleep at night and know that I help change somebody's life.
Yeah, so that's on the mental health worker program website, and we also have a testimonial from another one of our students, also who has had lived experience, and at the time was a current student in the program, and talks a little bit about her experience in the classes. So another resource for you to check out in case you're interested. But yeah, I agree. I think it could be very rewarding. A lot of the meetings that I have with students about the program, just one-on-one meetings, they'll tell me, yeah, I've gone through this, and this is really what fuels my desire to go into a career to help others. So it comes from a different place, right? Not to say that if you haven't had that experience, I mean, that's fine too, because it shows your heart for helping others.
I've also gotten a very interesting question about the field, like what if I dye my hair or have tattoos, or like presentation of self. And I think that that's also very beautiful about our field, because there's so many different populations and every agency is going to be a little different. And so I knew somebody who had tattoos on their neck and their arms and their hands, and was very afraid of like, what if I get rejected by the professional, quote unquote, professional realm? And I said, well, that might actually be what helps connect you to the different populations. And my approach is, if an agency doesn't want me because my hair is purple or shaved or I have tattoos, then that might not be the right agency for me. There's probably another one for me. So I think that there's a lid for every pot, right? There's who we are in this world, that we can find a good place for us within it, I think.
Really appreciate your insights, especially, validating that those that have had those lived experiences, sometimes that can make you even better in that field, because then your clients feel like you're relatable and you get them. And, for clients, and again, my understanding, right, is that people often feel hesitant to reach out for help or to get support because they feel like they're going to be judged. And that can definitely help, connect with clients. Sylvia, I don't know if you had any particular questions, or if you wanted to share some of your thoughts of what you're thinking about, or what interests you in the field, and how Jacqueline and Yvette can help you today.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. I already write in the chat, but it's better asking. I am interested about working with for example, parents, or help with my community and different programs. And I don't know which is the better to choose, if a social worker or mental health worker program. I am a little confused. This is one. Another is my major was sociology, but I only choose 2 years because I am in the promise program. So I have only 2 years to study, and my counselor told me that there is no social worker for 2 years. Instead, I I should choose mental health worker program, and I don't know if this is good for what I want to do. Thank you.
Did you want me to address that one? I think Sylvia, the 2 years. So let me just ask about that. The Promise program, it's the 2 years because that's how much, that's the funding, correct, that they give you. And so, I think you can do the mental health worker certificate. That would be a good starting place, because a lot of those classes that you take for that program also apply to a degree in sociology or psychology. So should you decide, that you want to do that and pursue the degree route, you're getting the certificate along the way, and then you can continue with the degree. And theoretically, it could be done in 2 years, but of course, there's a lot of things going on, and lots of obligations that we might have, and it might not allow for a full student workload. So I don't know if that answers your question. I also think that you could do a sociology degree and the mental health worker certificate, and that would be a good gateway into social work later down the line. Just because I think your counselor might have told you that because Cerritos College doesn't have a social work program, and the closest thing to that could be, the mental health worker program, a sociology degree, or a psychology degree. I don't know, Joy or Yvette, do you want to chime in and that?
Yeah, thank you.
So I think going back to which one should I do? It really, like you said, it really, there's a lot of overlap. So it really depends on what your heart kind of guides you to. And that's the beautiful part, because there is a lot of overlap. So you can do the certificate. And you said that there's also an AA, right, in the mental health. So it's not like this or that. It can be this and that, if you wanted it to be. And so it really, I tend to bounce that question back to students, because it really depends on what your interests are, where you want to go. And for me to say, oh, this is what you should do, kind of takes away your journey from you. So I would want more information, more, I'm more curious than I have answers, because yeah, I think in California, there is no AA in social work. It just hasn't been created. And I think each state does it their own way. And so you have to choose, or you can choose something else, and then ultimately transfer in with the social work, or continue that particular major.
Okay, so mental health worker is a good start? Can be? Okay.
I would think so. Yes. So, with the mental health certificate, it gives you an advantage if you wanted to get a job after the certificate. And then you can continue your education on the degree pathway. And right. So again, it kind of, again, depends on, if that's right, like depends on what your long-term goal is as well. I think all of them could be a pathway to get to that long-term goal, but also in terms of like what you are interested in. Like, for example, with the mental health worker program, there are some psychology classes that are required, such as intro psych and abnormal psych. And the psychology classes have more of a focus on the individual. And whereas the sociology classes, and you two can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's more of a like societal level, group-based level, larger picture level. and how that trickles down to the individual potentially, but more so on the focus on the bigger picture. And psychology will drill down to more of the micro level, or in other words, kind of focusing on what's happening within the individual. So to answer your question, yes, it would be an excellent start. And if you wanted some more individual guidance on how to get started, I can, get on a different call with you, and you can contact me. I'll drop my email in the chat for you, and I can help guide you. But Joy, you're gonna jump in.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, I also wanted to add, to not feel limited by, the 2-year program, as far as, there are lots of funding opportunities, scholarship opportunities that we have at the college. There are a variety of, places that you can access some support on that, certainly financial aid. I know that Shannon over at the Career Services office also, this is one of her particular passions, to help connect students to funding opportunities so that you don't feel as sort of pressured to, only get things done within that 2 years, and it gives you a little bit more time to, take the courses that you need to perhaps transfer. And then also, I know since you dropped into the meeting a little bit later, I'll share this recording with you. If you want to send me an email, you have my email already, but I'll send it again, so that you can see the sort of mapping that Professor Letelier presented, that really, could help you visualize how all of these different programs kind of really fit together, and can all help you get to your goal. So absolutely, I would, encourage you to reach out to Dr. Ronquillo, reach out to myself, keep banging on doors and emailing and asking questions. There are plenty of people on campus that are here to support you. And it sounds like you're very, you're focused and inspired to, to work with a particular population. And I think, all of us are, are happy to support you in that process. So please continue to reach out and, so that we can support you. Oh, cool.
Okay, thank you for your help.
I also provided a link to a really interesting document that a student found and shared with me. And it's all the different paths that you can take. So it will talk about the micro, meso, macro level work that you could do with a degree in social work.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Tatiana, did you have any questions that you wanted to address, maybe clarify on your own path and what you're thinking about moving forward? Or Alexis or Liz, any other questions that we can answer for you while we're here?
No, I think I'm good on questions, but yeah, I appreciate the layout and the time everyone took to speak today. So thank you.
All right, well, if you think of anything, we've all dropped our emails in the chat. Feel free to reach out if anything comes up. Reach out to me as well if you'd like the recording of this. If you want to go over some of the information that was presented. Again, want to thank Dr. Ronquillo and Professor Letelier for their time today, in sharing these programs and these career fields, and wishing everyone a great spring break. Everybody stay safe. Hope we can relax a little bit.
Thank you for having us, and just sharing space before the spring break. And yes, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. There is also that I'm going to do a very tacky dropping of our class, but Social 220 is Intro to Social Services, and we talk about all of those generalist skills like the nonverbals, the verbals, career paths. It's like this conversation, but over 15 weeks. So you're welcome to let me know if you're interested in that class in the future.
Thank you for having us, Joy. I appreciate it. And, Alexis and Tatiana, Sylvia, and Liz, you're never alone, right? If you need some help with this, it's always great to reach out and we can help guide you. So thank you again for everything.
Yeah, and last thing I forgot to mention is that in 2 weeks, we're actually Professor Letelier has, taken the time and reached out to her network to put together a panel of social workers in different fields that are coming from different perspectives. So that could, will definitely be another place for you all to ask questions and get more information on that. So look out for that flyer that should be going out very soon. And then one place to, keep up with the Sociology Club and these kinds of events is on Instagram, where we'll be posting that flyer, and so you can follow us there. I've also dropped that handle in the chat for you all. All right. Okay, take care, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.